I'm going to mute all of you now. It's 6:30 and welcome to the 152nd meeting of FOSWL. Again, for those of you who have joined us for the first time, FOSWL stands for Friends on Same Wavelength, FOSWL. This was started around 2000 in Cupertino, California, and we are one of the several chapters it has worldwide. Hyderabad chapter was started by Mr. Venkateswarrao Tipirneni, who's the founder president in the year 2009. So we are very close to completing 13 years of uninterrupted monthly meetings. And of course, many of you have attended earlier meetings, so you are aware of that. I repeat this in every meeting because we always have a few new members in every meeting. So we are delighted to have a very interesting topic this month. And let's get right into it. And I'd like to invite Yashoda Totakura, who's joining us from Basel, Switzerland. She is migrated there, moved there more than 20 years ago, where she lives with her family after she did her BSc Home Science here. And she, of course, went on to do another master's in Business Information Systems in Basel. She was in Novartis Pharma IT, but now she is a part of N&M Creations, a film distribution company in Switzerland. She is a project manager. Yashoda, would you read the prayer to start off the meeting?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Subbarao garu. Yeah, today I'm going to read the prayer, Heaven of Freedom, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where the knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where the words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action. In that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. Thank you.
Thank you, Yashoda, for rendering the prayer. Many of you may remember our founder member, Mr. R.B. Rao. Returi Bhaskar Rao is his full name, and amongst his many accomplishments, at least in our FOSWL family, he is well known for as the man who started machine sliced bread in India way back in the 1950s. He is a well-known scientist in the food industry, and this month's lecture is an endowment in his name. He has not been keeping too well, so he's unable to join our meeting today, but his daughter has joined us. And to tell us a little about his life and work, we have Mr. Naresh Rahman. Naresh, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Subbarao. It gives me great pleasure to talk about, I call him fondly as RB Uncle, Returi Bhaskar Rao, MSc, FRSA London, FCS London, FSEI. After a distinguished academic career in specializing in baking technology in the United Kingdom and Western Europe, Professor R. Bhaskar Rao joined the services of Britannia Biscuit Company Limited in 1949 as the chief chemist and technologist, and has held a number of managerial positions of importance in the company ever since. Professor Rao was the technical director since 1969 till he retired from the company in 1980. During his long tenure, he's been responsible for introducing testing labs, quality control systems, and developed company standards. Professor Rao was the pioneer in introducing machine-made sliced and wrapped bread in 1954 at Delhi under the brand name of Delbis for the first time ever in India. Professor Rao was responsible for initiating job work in biscuit manufacture when the industry was reserved for the small scale sector. Professor Rao had been actively associated with a number of organizations such as the Madras Management Association, CFTRI Mysore, and Jodhpur University, Calcutta, etc. Besides being the president of the Society of Indian Bakers from 75 to 77, president of the Federation of Biscuit Manufacturers of India 78 to 81, and again in 92 to 93. President of Protein Foods Nutrition Development Association of India 1976-77. He was the chairman of Bakery and Confectionery Sectional Committee of ISI for more than 15 years. A past president of the Rotary Club of Hyderabad North during 1986-87, and I was privileged to work with him and learned a lot from him as the secretary of the same Rotary Club during that year. President of GD Matla Industries Association, 87, 89, and 93 to 95. Is a member of the CFTRI Research Advisory Board, 77 to 80, chairman of the Selection Committee for Recruitment of Senior Staff of CFTRI. He was the ex-chairman of Kutbulapur Industrial Municipality from 98 to 2003. Ex-president of the APSTI Hyderabad chapter from 2002 to 4. As a president of the FBMI, Professor Rao took the initiative of starting training program in 1978 in biscuit manufacture in collaboration with Wheat Associates at New Delhi for the first time ever in India. After retirement, he started a small-scale unit at the Industrial Development Area GD Matla for manufacture of biscuits in 1980, which employs about 300 workers doing job work. The products carry ISI certification mark right from the very inception. The company was accorded ISO 9000-2000 certification for contract manufacturing and packaging of biscuits. Professor Rao is currently the chairman of Uttam Biscuit Company Limited, Hyderabad, advisor to GD Matla Industries Association, Hyderabad, member of the executive committee of FBMI Delhi, fellow of the Chemical Society London from 1950, fellow of Royal Society of Arts London from 1951, a professional member of the Institute of Food Technologists USA from 1951, and the vice president of AFSTI from Hyderabad. Professor Rao is a recipient of many awards. I will take the pleasure of sharing a few of them. National Award for Quality Products in the Small Scale Sector 2003 for manufacturing biscuits of outstanding quality was conferred in 2005 by the Government of India, Ministry of Small Scale Industries. National Productivity Award 2004 by the National Productivity Council. CITD National Quality Award 2003 from the Council for Industrial and Trade Development, India. Mahatma Gandhi Gold Medal 2003 from the National Awareness Forum, New Delhi. Gaurav Udyog Bhushan Award of the Millennium 2000 from the Council of Industrial and Trade Development, Hyderabad. Distinguished Leadership Award 1999 by the American Biographical Institute, USA. He has been a Rotarian since 1954 and a Paul Harris Fellow. He got the Udyog Ratan Award 98 from the Institute of Economic Studies, New Delhi. He got the All India Independence Gaurav Award 1997 conferred by CITD India. The All India Industrial Promotion Award 1994 by CITD. He was conferred with the Entrepreneur of the Year 1987 by the Hyderabad Management Association. Professor Rao had published a number of technical papers connected with the baking industry in various technical journals and extensively traveled to UK, Europe, and USA, Canada, Southeast Asia, etc. He was a member of the Wheat team to US in 1969, sponsored by the US Wheat Associates. And I would just like to add that I had the opportunity to be blessed to visit him on the 15th of August, which happens to be his birthday. And he just turned 98 young. He was cheerful. We could cut a cake, spend some time with him, and took his blessings and left. Thank you, Subbarao, for giving me this opportunity.
What an accomplished life. And I think I'm so happy that a forum like FOSWL provides a platform to remember people who have contributed to nation building in various fields. Thank you, Naresh, for sharing such interesting facets of Sri Bhaskar Rao's life. In the last few weeks, we have received
Subbarao garu, sound please.
the sound is clear to us, Chidambaram garu. You'll have to increase the volume on your device. Somebody else was also complaining, I think Bose garu. The rest of you are able to hear okay, I guess. Just give a thumbs up. Okay. So everything seems to be, yeah, Chidambaram garu, you'll have to make a change on your device. I cannot change the volume from my end. I think he's not able to hear me.
Subbarao, maybe you can text him if he understands that in the chat box.
Yeah. We'll do that. One of the several feedbacks that I've been receiving, over the months, but more so in the recent past, is the diversity of topics that we have at FOSWL Hyderabad. And more than one person has been appreciative of that. So to continue that flavor, we have a very interesting topic this month on Africa. To most of us, the word Africa conjures images of backwardness, political instability, riots, and whatnot. But just hold on to your seats to be, for all those myths to be busted and to get on an enchanting journey to this beautiful land. But before we do that, I'd like to invite another classmate of ours from school, Professor Susheel Bhavnani, who teaches at the University of Auburn.
I'm not getting sound please.
Can you all just give me a minute? I need to tell this gentleman. Somsekhara, do you have Mr. Chidambaram's number?
I don't have.
Okay. I'm just calling him. Sorry for the interruption. I think he is feeling a little. Sorry about that. Before we move on, let's hear from Susheel, another classmate of ours, to tell us all the dark secrets of Anand, right from his school days. As I said, Susheel is a professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, if I'm not mistaken, Susheel.
Right.
Yeah, but of course, he works on very interesting subjects. Maybe one of these days he should speak to us. He is in the University of Alabama at Auburn, Alabama State. Susheel, would you tell us a little about Anand?
So I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
I had a presentation that was very embarrassing, but now that his daughters are in attendance, I don't think I'll use that one. So let me toss it aside. Let me give you the cleaned up version. It is my honor to introduce today's distinguished speaker, Anand Halwe. Anand matriculated from Ferguson College in 1975, received a master's degree in economics from the Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics in 1977, and an MBA from Symbiosis International in Pune in 1979. For the past decade, Anand has served as the director and founder of Nuvis Analytics, a predictive analytics company that focuses on data-based business strategy for small and medium businesses. And it is this that has brought him 5 years with a client in Nairobi, Kenya, leading to extensive travel to Africa and service as an independent director on their board. As one might expect from an army brat, Anand readily embraces new experiences. In fact, this quest for knowledge earned him the moniker Khabar Khan in high school. His professional experience spans over 35 years in the high-tech and infrastructure services industry, including stints with companies such as Sun Microsystems in Cupertino, California in the early 2000s, in India, and in Africa. His professional colleagues describe him as a clear thinker with a great sense of humor. His fondness for Africa is shared by his wife Shubha and his daughters Aarti and Aditi, who are both in attendance today. The family lived in Africa from 90 to 95, and Anand continued to travel there almost on a monthly basis in recent years. Now, the mind's eye generates remarkably vivid images when one thinks of classmates from high school. So to me, Anand will always remain a kind, mature, but beyond his years, friendly 17-year-old with the highest moral character. I'm sure his other classmates attending, and I counted about 6 or 7 so far, will wholeheartedly agree. It came as no surprise that it was Anand who took the trouble to get a majority of our high school graduating class back together when he initiated the Hyderabad Public School WhatsApp group. He has extremely strong persuasive skills that show up time and again, even if it means convincing Hotel Vivanta management to permit him to climb construction ladders to scale the roof of the building, probably all fairly illegal, right? To take pictures of HPS. There's probably more to that story to chase down after he completes his formal presentation. I know there are others on the conversation that would like to add to that, perhaps. So that brings us to the topic of his presentation today. Whether your exposure to the continent of Africa, as Subbu said, comes from watching TV shows such as Animal Planet on the Discovery Channel, or watching movies such as The Lion King, or reading Phantom comics and recalling The Ghost Who Walks, it is probably different from the rich tapestry that Anand has experienced in person. In today's FOSWL presentation, Anand will provide those of us who have not traveled to this exquisite continent an intimate glimpse of his personal experiences in East Africa. Remember, I told you about his persuasive skills. His stated goal today is to persuade you to make a visit to exotic East Africa a must-do on your bucket list. So with that, please join me in warmly welcoming our distinguished speaker, an adventurous leader, and a true mensch, Anand Halwe. Anand?
Susheel, I don't know if you mentioned that he was a trumpeter in our school band. That's where Nitin, I don't know who else. Were you in the school band too? I'm not sure. We were all, I was, I think, the side drummer or something, all minion roles, but these guys were the leads, both with those trumpets. Am I right, Anand?
That's
You
absolutely
were
right. Nitin
trumpeter.
as well.
Nitin and you were the trumpeters in the school band. Yeah. Thank you so much, Susheel, for a very interesting intro to Anand. Anand, the floor is yours to take us to Africa now.
Okay. First of all, a good evening to everybody and greetings from Pune. I figured there are a few people from Pune here, so that'd be nice. It's also good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are, because I think there are a lot of people here from the United States, right across east to west coast. There's somebody from Switzerland, so I guess good afternoon to you.
And Cambodia.
And Cambodia, so that's good evening to you. I mean, a late good evening to you.
Yeah.
So anyway, I am delighted to be here. I mean, I got to thank Subbarao and I got to thank FOSWL to make this happen, because I am just amazed. I'm delighted that this is the 9th endowment lecture in the name of Professor R.B. Rao. And as Subbarao said, it is the 152nd monthly meeting. Now, I've been attending FOSWL presentations for the last 15 months. We started around the time that pandemic happened. And I really find it amazing that month after month, Subbarao has been able to pull together speakers of eminence, speakers who are willing to come down here and share their knowledge, share their experiences to this rather august audience. So thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I would also like to thank Susheel for the introduction, because everything that he said is probably not true in reality, but I appreciate the fact that he has made all those good words for us. So for me in particular, I'm sorry, I was interrupted. I've been told my forehead is being cut from the picture, so I was told to change the angle of the screen. I guess that is good now.
Yeah.
So Susheel, thank you so much for the introduction. You did a very persuasive job of telling the audience that there's actually eminence out here. I really doubt that. But I hope that at the end of this, people will be enthralled and be interested enough to travel to Africa. So give me a moment, I'll set the screen running and then we'll take off into the presentation itself. I guess everybody can see this.
Yes.
Subbarao, if you can just give me a thumbs up, then I'll be happy with it.
Yes, we can see you.
Great. So many months back, when Subbarao and I started talking about making this presentation to FOSWL, one of the things I told Subbarao at that time was that one thing I do not want to do is talk about what I did in my professional life. Because my professional life, while it was interesting, it was good, no complaints at all, it is something that we all do as a part of making a life work. And I think I did a good job, good enough to enjoy the benefits of being in the tech industry. One of the big benefits that I saw out of the tech industry was, I was from the business side, I was never a techie. Since I was from the business side, I had this great opportunity to travel around, travel in India, travel in Asia Pacific. I lived in the United States for a decade. These travels actually took me to Africa. So my love affair with the continent began 30 years back. And what I've decided to do today was to give you a peek into what I saw, what enthralled me, and why I think it should be a must-do on your bucket list of travel. Now, I am aware that the group here is well-heeled, travels a lot. Some of them continue to travel extensively. But I'm not sure how many of them have actually, how many of you have been actually into the African continent. For those who haven't, this should be revealing. For those who have, hopefully it rekindles the desire to get onto the plane and go there once again, pandemic permitting. So one of the outcomes of this, my professional work, was that 30 years back, I ended up traveling to East Africa on an assignment, which kept me in Africa for almost 5 years. I lived in Nairobi, and as a part of my process of living there, I also was a very curious tourist. So I did my bit of going on safari. Now I try to give it an interesting number, and I came to this number of 1,800 hours. And I remember when I was sharing this slide deck with Subba, he kind of looked at 1,800 hours and said, "Hey, that sounds, it seems like you were not working." And I almost felt like I was not working, because it turned out to be such an interesting place to be in. I lived there. I spent about 1,650 hours, days on the ground. So I like to believe that what I'm going to share with you is a series of observations which are personal. I'm going to share a lot of personal photographs, and the presentation will be more pictures and less words, because I believe pictures tell 1,000 words anyway. So as I said, I went to Africa for the first time in 1991. And, Africa reminds me, going to Africa is going to Calcutta. I'm sure many of you have been to Calcutta. Calcutta, I remember when I went there for the first time in the early 80s or late 70s, actually. It wasn't exactly a very exciting city visually, but having gone there, stayed there a bit, I realized that Calcutta is the kind of place that once you go there, it grows on you. You begin to appreciate the character, you appreciate the warmth of the people, and there's a personality which is very compelling. This is exactly what I sensed about what I experienced once I went to Africa. And I was looking desperately for a picture that would represent what that meant to me. And I picked up a picture of a baobab tree, because that's really what Africa is. And you grow into this because you kind of enjoy it and you don't want to leave the continent. So what I have done is, in this next 35 to 40 minutes, I'll share a lot of personal experiences. I will also give you some comments on the weather, the people, the warmth that I experienced. What it'll hopefully tell you is that I'm a very hardcore Afrophile. Having said that, let me ask you all a question. When any of us contemplate a holiday, many destinations come to mind. And more often than not, our destinations, particularly as we get into the younger years of our life, which is from 60 onwards, you end up choosing a lot of destinations like this. And there are a lot of motivations that drive you to these destinations, because more often than not, you say, I'll go somewhere because I have friends, I have family. For the younger people, going to a destination could also be aspirational. But one of the reasons why a lot of people make destination choices of this kind is because in their mind, they have some knowledge of where they're going, more so if they're going there for the first time. There's knowledge, there's a perception there of safety, and which is why all these destinations come to mind. What doesn't often come to mind is Africa. And so one of the briefs I'm trying to address is to ultimately try and address some of the myths and some of the concerns that travelers, first-time travelers in particular, have when they think about a vacation to Africa. So, as a personal anecdote, when I first traveled there 30 years ago, I remember I was sitting on this plane flying out of Mumbai going into Nairobi. And as luck would have it, I had a very senior member of the United Nations traveling on board next to me. And it was a dinner flight, so over drinks and dinner, he was regaling me with stories about Africa. And I'll tell you what, it was a seduction that was happening out there, because even reading about places like the Serengeti, like the Masai Mara, this all had an aura of magic, a magic that became so compelling. He, in fact, was a pilot in his own rights. He invited me to join him on a ride in his two-seater aircraft and take a flight over the Rift Valley and see the top of Mount Longonot, which is a dormant volcano. And I said, hey, I haven't even reached Africa, and this magic is beginning to open up for me. So I picked up these two sayings that I have before me, which give you a sense of what Africa is all about and what people who have been there think about it. What I find the most fascinating is this one in the center, which I thought I would read out to you. And it says, the only man I envy is the man who has not yet been to Africa, for he has so much to look forward to. Now, I cannot tell you how much I find this appropriate, because that is really what a first-time traveler feels after going there, because there's so much to see, so much to do, and so much new to experience. So having said all this, when I was thinking about how to structure this story for you this evening, I decided to use the metaphor from Alice in Wonderland. All of us have probably read Alice in Wonderland. And there was this metaphor of the rabbit hole. And I said, look, let's go down, let's take a plunge down the rabbit hole together and see what there is on the other side, and talk about what is possible for all of you, should you choose to travel there. So as a starting point, let me start by, for people who have been to Africa, this is boring stuff, because I'm talking about defining what East Africa is, where is it located in the context of the continent. But East Africa basically is made up of 5 different countries, 6 if you include Ethiopia, or 7 if you include Somalia. Except Somalia is not a country you choose to travel to because of all the unrest in that location. Ethiopia is also a little uncomfortable at the moment, so I've chosen to stay with these 5 with a focus on Kenya, Tanzania and Zanzibar, Uganda and Rwanda. Burundi is a small little country, doesn't have too much tourist traffic at this point in time, and is barely visible in this map out here. Even Rwanda is a little patch that you see on the side, which is really the country of Rwanda. Now, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda are all a part of British East, well, they were a part of British East Africa. So one of the things that you expect from British East African colonies is that they are all English speaking. They all drive on the same side of the road that we are used to. And they are all centered around the equator. That's what makes it common. Rwanda, on the other hand, and Burundi were colonies. They have a history of colonization which goes from one nation to another. But the last known colonizers were the French. So you find a lot of French spoken in Rwanda and Burundi. Now, if I was to ask people who aren't familiar with Africa, what is it that comes first to their mind when they think about Rwanda? People unfortunately always think about the genocide that occurred in the early 90s. Which is an unfortunate reality. But Rwanda today is a completely transformed space, and I will talk about it. Oh my, one second, I've gone forward by chance. I will talk about Rwanda a bit as we go forward. Just that you need to know that you will be surprised with what Rwanda today is. I will come to that. So the other introduction I wanted to make to this entire presentation was to give you a sense that the African continent is humongous. It's one of the, I'm not sure, but I think it is one of the largest continents, probably after Asia. And I found this interesting graphic on the internet, which I thought was a great way of positioning the size of the continent. It's a continent which takes in almost all of China, almost all of India, most of the United States other than Alaska and Hawaii, and parts of Western Europe. So it is an enormous state. So there is no way, if you are a first-time traveler, you can do justice to the whole continent. What you could do justice to is pick and choose places to travel to, and that is what I'm trying to help you do today. When you think about East Africa, like I said, there are 5 countries. Beyond East Africa, you could consider destinations in the south, which is in South Africa itself. You could go to the Victoria Falls on the border of Zambia and Zimbabwe. You could go to Botswana. I don't know whether you have seen this movie, The Gods Must Be Crazy. If you haven't seen it, you must. It is an absolute must. It's an old movie, probably not on Netflix. But if you get your hands on a copy, do see it because it shows you an extremely beautiful side of Botswana. And then, of course, you have the north, where you have Egypt and you have the Nile and you have the pyramids. So having said this, let's get into a bit on East Africa. And let me share as a starting point, give you a flavor of a few interesting tidbits. I want to start with the Gorongoro crater in Tanzania. Now, the Gorongoro crater in Tanzania is, I mean, in my introductory note, when I wrote a synopsis of what am I going to talk about, I started with this whole concept of going to the Garden of Eden. In Phantom Comics, the Garden of Eden is this incredible place where animals exist, all types of animals exist, and they seem to exist in absolute peace. The Gorongoro crater is an incredibly similar kind of a setup. It is a World Heritage Site. It is a 2.3 million year old dormant volcano located about 180 kilometers from Arusha International Airport. This is a crater which is at an altitude of well over 3,000 to 4,000 feet. In fact, all the lodges that you stay in when you visit the Gorongoro crater are at an altitude of 8,000 feet. And the crater floor is below the rim, almost 3,000 feet below. And this is the kind of view that you actually get from your lodge rooms. All lodge rooms oversee the crater. So it's a tremendous sight. And it's a must see if you go into that part of the world. The crater is 260 square kilometers. And the entire crater is at an altitude of 6,000 feet. So you will discover that the weather formation, the kind of weather that you encounter there is completely different from what you would expect from Africa if you haven't been there already. There is tremendous amount of wildlife within the crater. Wildlife that you find there includes the buffalo, the rhinos, lions, hippos, elephants, zebras, wildebeest, and spotted hyenas. One animal that is so typical of Africa that you would not find in the crater is the giraffe. But this is exactly a real life picture that we have taken while we went on one of our visits to the Gorongoro crater. Here is another view of the crater from the lodge, the room there, overseeing the floor of the crater. You can see the lake in the distance. And here on the right, you have this incredible picture of vehicles all parked around this water body. Now, this water body is a natural water body. The reasons why all these vehicles are there is that is the place where vehicles that descend from the lodges at the top. The typical routine of the Gorongoro crater is you come down into the crater floor and you spend a day observing the wildlife and observing the Masai tribesmen. And when it's time to have lunch, we all travel down with a box of packed lunch from the lodge. And you come down there, and this is where you have lunch because all the animals in this area are all wild. So you have safety in numbers. What the crater authorities have also done is created conveniences. So all your bio breaks are taken care of. And in addition to this, you are able to observe the hippos in the water. You're able to observe all the animal life like the monkeys and the wild boars and so on. So all this happens around this. So this is a snapshot of the Gorongoro crater. Next thing that I wanted to focus on in this meeting was the fact that in East Africa, equator runs right across the cross-section of East Africa that we are referring to. And traditionally, when you think about traveling to the equator, the images of weather that you encounter on the equator is weather which is warm to hot, very humid. Instead, what do you find? You find the two tallest mountain peaks in the African continent on two sides of the equator. You have Mount Kilimanjaro, which is in Tanzania, and you have Mount Kenya, which is on the Kenyan side of the equator. And it's an amazing place because what you find is snow-capped mountains round the year, rolling greens, and this gives you an opportunity to have a variety of types of holidays. You could go game viewing again, you could just relax, you could go trekking. Subha, I think somebody is raising his arm.
Where? I don't see it.
Mr. Shidambara. I thought he was raising his arm, which is why I pointed it out to you.
No, he was not able to hear, but I spoke to him. You may continue.
Okay, all right. So you have the two highest peaks, as I said. So this is the equator. Then you have the amazing Rift Valley. Now this is another amazing natural formation. It's what the Rift Valley is in simple English. It is a fracture in the Earth's surface that widens over a period of time. It's a geological wonder of the world. This East African Rift Valley runs right across from the north to the south. It goes north from Ethiopia all the way down into southern Africa, into the country of Malawi. And what you find in the Rift Valley is scenes of the kind that you're seeing here. As you drive from Nairobi out into the Rift Valley, you come to the Rift Valley viewpoint, and then you see this sudden descent. And this is where you have Mount Longonot, another dormant volcano, which you can see from the top. You have Earth receiving stations. And the other interesting part about the Rift Valley is it is full of lakes. There are, in fact, 8 major lakes, including Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is, in case you aren't familiar with Lake Victoria, it is the second largest lake in the world, after Lake Superior, which is in North America. Now, the lakes, there are 3 types of lakes in the Rift Valley. You have the freshwater lakes, you have the saline lakes, and then you have the semi-saline lakes. So if you look at the freshwater lakes, they are the ones which are Lake Naivasha and Lake Baringo. Full of wildlife again. Hippos are from Lake Naivasha. These are real life pictures in the sense they are not taken off the internet. Lake Baringo, I will come to Lake Baringo subsequently. You have the saline lakes, Lake Nakuru, Lake Bagoria, Lake Elementaita, and Lake Magadi. Now, what's interesting in the saline lakes is they attract amongst the largest concentration of migrant flamingos. And it's a spectacular sight because as you approach these lakes, you find literally, I mean, I like to use the word millions, but it feels like millions of flamingos at the lake. So as you come down from the top, as you descend towards the lake, you see the lake appearing before your eyes, and the entire formation looks like there is pink icing out there. At Lake Bagoria, beyond the flamingos, you also have the hot springs. So it is an amazing, amazing sight where you see wildlife, you see birds, and you see absolute spectacular natural beauty. The other highlight of East Africa that I would mention to all of you is the mountain gorillas. The mountain gorillas can be seen in Uganda. It's about going to see the mountain gorillas. This is one of those experiences where you do not go in a vehicle. You need to go on a trek. And you could do it either in Uganda or in Rwanda. And you are accompanied, you're broken into small groups of about a maximum of 10 tourists at a time. And those 10 tourists are accompanied by a single ranger who gives you a complete lowdown on how do gorillas behave, what is it that you need to do when you are in their vicinity. And then you go into a reasonably dense forest-like growth, and you encounter gorillas like this, which are, when you finally see them, you are able to see them at a distance of as little as 4 to 5 feet away from them. They are almost human. The rangers are the guys who give you the do's and don'ts on how to behave at the front of them. You have to be submissive. You've got to not look them in the eye, and you need to be quiet. But this is exactly the way groups of gorillas appear before your eyes. Then you have the island of Zanzibar, which is off the coast of Tanzania. Now, Zanzibar is the spice island of Africa, and it has been a part of the old spice trade route right from the Middle East down into Africa and across into Asia. And this is the place where you would get, besides fabulous fruit, it's really renowned for its cloves, its nutmeg, cardamom, turmeric, chili, and black pepper. Also, the other hallmark of Zanzibar is the beaches, beach holiday opportunities that Zanzibar provides you. So you have the white beaches of Zanzibar, and then you have the white beaches in Tanzania and Kenya. The Kenyan beach resort that you see below is the Diani Reef Resort near Mombasa. For those people who have traveled into that part of the world, you would be familiar with the Diani Reef Resort, and this is really what it is. Incredibly beautiful places and incredibly great experiences in that if you are looking for a beach holiday. And then, of course, when you think Africa, you think of game viewing. And you get a game viewing experience which is unparalleled in the world. And I say it's unparalleled because, number one, there are a lot of things going for game viewing out there. Number one is the terrain. So if you were to compare the game viewing experience between what it is, let's say, in an Indian tiger reserve, and then what you experience in East Africa, you find a complete change in the terrain. While Indian tiger reserves tend to be very dense forests, and your probability of seeing a tiger depends really on your own taqdeer or luck. In the East African experience, you have savannas, so it's easy to see the game, and there is no shortage of it. When you see giraffes, you see 24, 30 giraffes. When you see elephants, you can see them in thousands. When you see zebras, when you see rhinos, when you see the buffalo, you would see them in hundreds, if not in thousands. Wildebeest are in thousands. So you are never ever going to have a frustrating visit to the game viewing experience in Africa. So there is wildlife to satiate your appetite, and it is satiated to the point that you kind of, after a point of time, say, oh, it's only a zebra, let's drive on. Because you have seen so many of them, there is nothing novel left by the time you spend 8 or 10 days in Africa. What the other point I wanted to highlight to all of you in the game viewing experience, I have to talk to you about the game parks of the Masai Mara and the Serengeti. Now, if you look at the Serengeti and the Masai Mara in the map, you will find that they are fundamentally one big game park. And when I say big, I mean 15,000 square kilometers. So can you imagine what it is to drive into an expanse which is as large as that? And when you drive in there, you go up to your lodge, you drive in a terrain like this, you do not see lodges. Yet when you come to the lodge, you are amazed at what you experience within the lodge. But I'll come to that. I don't want to preempt some of the stories I want to share with you all, some of the myths that I want to share with you all. Now, what I was talking to one other participant in today's meeting, and this gentleman is an extensive traveler, has been into Africa many a times. So what you experience most in this, and one of the nicest things, is when you see the migration process of animals in quest of water. And the migration typically happens from the north, which is they come in from the Masai Mara in Kenya, and they migrate down to the Serengeti in Tanzania. And it is a sight to behold. If you have not already seen it on National Geographic or Discovery channels, and believe me, all those clips that you see on these channels is absolute reality. There is nothing that is made up. You don't even have to wait. Once you drive up there in certain months, you see that kind of migration happen before your eyes. It's a spectacular sight without question. Now, what you see in the Masai Mara, the biggest thing that you see in the Masai Mara and Serengeti are what are regarded as the big five in Africa. And the big five are the elephant, the lion, the leopard, the two-horned rhino, and the Cape buffalo. Now, when we were new, when we first went to live in Kenya for the first time, and we would tell our friends, our African friends out there, that we get our milk from a buffalo or we take a ride on an elephant, they would look at us because we are smaller built people compared to the Africans. And they would always wonder why and how did we have the courage to even get close to any of these animals. The reason being the African buffalo and the African elephant are practically untamable, and they are humongous. They can be big and they can be mean. So when you go viewing these animals, you keep a respectable distance, and the drivers who take you to these locations know the rules to follow, the kind of distance to keep, because you do not want your vehicle to be attacked by any one of these animals. So here is a quiz question. My next slide throws up a quiz question. Can you imagine where this picture has been taken from? Which country does it come from? And since we are not, unfortunately, in a person-to-person meeting, I need to give you the answer, because this is from a country which is today called the Switzerland of Africa. And it's called the Switzerland of Africa for a multiple set of reasons. One of it is the natural beauty of the place. It is also known as the country of 100 hills. This is Rwanda. And it's called the Switzerland of Africa for multiple reasons, as I said. One of them is its natural beauty. There are game parks in Rwanda too, which show you similar game of the kind I've been talking about. They also show you the gorillas, but it's also called Switzerland of Africa because today it is one of the safest countries in Africa to visit, to live in, to start a new business. In fact, increasingly, a lot of companies that are going into the last frontier for opening up the markets there are choosing to use Rwanda as their base as an alternate to Nairobi. Rwanda and Nairobi become very central in the context of reaching out to the south and to the west and to the north. So this is a picture from Rwanda. The tragedy about Rwanda is that when people who are not familiar with the country today think about it, all the negative images of genocide come up. The reality is it is a completely transformed place and worthy of a visit. So having said this, I hope there has been enough enticement given to you to make you think that next time you want something different, you should be looking at considering a travel into the African continent. And again, these are pictures from personal travels. Some of the folks that are here are actually attending this presentation this evening. I will get into a little more detail on what I'm trying to show here. What I'm trying to now address is the kind of infrastructure you can expect when you make a travel plan into the African continent. I think what's important to all of us, particularly as we grow older in life, one of the most critical things that we seek are, number one, let's get into the choices, and then I'll get into the issues of things like creature comforts, how do you get around, and so on. What does East Africa offer you in the form of travel? It gives you great beach destinations. You choose the kind of destination you want, you choose the kind of cuisine you want, you get it in every possible location, including the beaches. You could go to the mountains, you could go trekking on the mountain foothills. It's lush green, not hot. This is what the equator looks like in Africa. You could go to the game parks. This game park, by the way, that has been taken here is the Nairobi National Park. What you are seeing is a game park with the background of the city center as a backdrop. In fact, I think one of the first memories that I had of traveling to this continent was I landed at Nairobi International Airport, and the fencing of the international airport was the Nairobi National Park. And it was absolutely fascinating for me and my family to not only land up there, but see giraffes peeping over the fence, watching the aircraft taxi from the runway to the terminal building. And we said, hey, we have arrived. This is where we want to, this is where we're going to be for the next 5 years. Extremely fascinating. You have the lakes in the Rift Valley. You have the lakes in the Rift Valley, like I said, give you a splendor of birds, hippos, and other wildlife. You have adventure sports. Imagine going into the game parks of Serengeti or the Masai Mara and doing a balloon safari. Imagine floating at the height of about 40 to 50 feet, quietly going across, observing the game from the top rather than alongside. It is a remarkable, remarkable experience. And typically when you go on a balloon safari to see the wildlife, the way it works is you do the balloon safari for about 1.5 hours, and they land in the bush. And you land in the bush, and they set up a complete kitchen out there. And they lay out an absolute champagne breakfast made fresh for you right in the middle of nowhere. It is a memorable experience. And then, like I said, you can go trekking. You can go to see the Rwandan mountain gorillas. This is the proximity I was talking about. This is really real stuff. If you go there, this is what is a possibility, and an easy possibility, not a rare possibility. Having said that, so when you choose, when you decide you want to do something, you are really spoiled for choice. You can make decisions between doing a wildlife oriented safari. You could just focus on the mountains. You could focus on the beaches. You can focus on trekking. Choose what suits you. That is really the essence. Choose what suits you. Choose the focus if you feel you want to focus. It allows you to choose variable holiday lengths. So if you have only a 3 or 4 day period, you might want to choose one of this and go do that one or two things. That is what is a choice before you. Alternatively, if you want to do what we did, and I will share some details of what we did ourselves, you do instead of doing an a la carte, you choose a combi or a combo, or I was calling it a thali. I said you can go a la carte, choose one of these, or do a thali where you have a little bit of everything. And and when you do a little bit of everything, again, your variation is on the length. It depends on how long you want to be. You could do it for 10 days, you could do it for 15 days, you could even do it longer. So the choice is really yours on how you want to go about making this travel happen. So having said that, let me start addressing some of the things that you will want to know. Let's start with creature comforts. Now, creature comfort, all of us are beyond the stage where we want to go roughing it out, using open spaces for all what constitutes a normal day for us. You want top of the line lodging. And what I've done is I've taken up pictures from our personal travel in this one particular safari to show you the quality of lodging that you get. On one hand, what you get on the left side of your slide is the Mount Kenya Safari Club. This is at the foothills of Mount Kenya. You wake up every morning, you see the mountain at striking distance from you. You can walk, you can hike there, not walk there. You can hike there. 7-star comforts if you want it. You can play golf. Or you can go into tented camps, which are the other two pictures. And these are pictures of the tented tents that you are seeing from within. Again, all live pictures. I'll show you more live pictures so that you will get a sense of the quality of the accommodation. And then I will also give you a sense of what does it take in terms of money, so that you are able to get a sense of why I'm so excited about this place. Now, all this is in the middle of nowhere. So when you saw those slides of the Masai Mara or the Gorongoro crater, it is what you see is what you get. But what you don't see is where the lodges are and how the lodges that you stay in merge with the topography. So once you are into the lodge, this is what you get: running hot water, running cold water, extreme comfort. And yet, when you go out there, you're back to nature the way you want it to be, and not have any signs of normal development all around you. So this is as far as creature comforts is concerned. How do you get around? You get around in vehicles like this. These vehicles depend on the size of the group. If you are just 1 or 2 people, you could take a Land Rover kind of vehicle, which is a little more compact. If you're in a vehicle like this, which is on the top left-hand side, this would be typically for a group of about 6. And these vary. I mean, the sizes vary from 6 to about 15. And if you are larger groups, you go into vehicles like this, so that game viewing, and trust me, you do this even with you see that there's a lion right next to the vehicle, and this is at striking distance. When we went out to the Gorongoro crater, we actually were in a vehicle like this, the one on the top left-hand side. And we had a black maned lion actually sitting in the shade of the vehicle next to us. If it was a safer place, you would feel like putting your hand out and petting him. It was that close. So these are all real stuff. This is what you will experience on travel into that part of the world. Now, I have not experienced a single holiday that we enjoy if the food hasn't been up to what you expect of it. And when I say expect of it, I mean not only the range of cuisine available to you, how is it served, what are the sanitary levels, what is the quality of the cleanliness around you. And this is what we have personally experienced. And this is the top left picture is a picture taken in the Samburu National Park. We were in a tented camp. I will show you a picture of that too. And this is dinner in the evening, where the dinners typically are sit-down menus. They bring the food to you, and with a great deal of drama, they take the lids off at one time so that everybody has a hot meal to enjoy all together. Lunchtime, typically you go into buffets. Cuisines, you can choose any cuisine. And for travelers from India, because we have a lot of Indians who are strict vegetarians, all these lodges in the middle of nowhere address pure vegetarian requirements also of Indian travelers extensively. So pure vegetarian, that is the question. The answer is Hakuna Matata. Hakuna Matata is a Swahili word for no problems. There are no problems getting the kind of food you want, fresh, plentiful, and served in style. You never feel you are in a eatery. You feel you are in a quality restaurant. Now, accessibility and convenience. So next time any one of you considers traveling into Africa for the first time, here is a word on accessibility and convenience. And let me give you some data points. Number one, a flight into East Africa from India is a 6-hour flight. And you have plenty of connections. You have connections into Nairobi, you have connections into Kigali, which is the capital of Rwanda. You can go into Dar es Salaam. You can even go into Arusha, which is near the Gorongoro crater. The other interesting bit is you get visas on arrival. Visas don't cost you an arm and a leg. So if you decide to travel at short notice, you can actually get onto the plane the next day, arrive into your destination, get your visa on arrival. It costs you $50 in each, typically in a country. And normally, if you are a tourist, they know you are a tourist. And if you're doing Kenya and crossing the border to go to the Gorongoro crater, they do not charge you an additional $50 to get into Tanzania. They stamp your visa because you're going as a tourist into the lodge there and then coming back. Now, the other convenience that I have found, and if that is important to you, and it probably is to all of us, because when you are young, you're worried about work. When you grow older, you want to stay connected with the family. You want to stay connected with your kids or grandkids. I was pleasantly surprised to find 4G connectivity in the remotest corners of these large game parks. So whether you are into the Serengeti or the Masai Mara, if you need to connect to your beloved ones, connectivity is not an issue. If you want to do some work during the afternoon, that is not an issue either. The other interesting piece that I want to highlight out here is when you plan a holiday into East Africa, there's airport to airport convenience. So really what that means is all you got to do is get there. So if you decide you want to go to the Masai Mara and do a very focused 3 to 4 day break into the Masai Mara and come back, you do it in such a way that all you got to do is reach the airport in Nairobi, and the travel company picks you up at the airport, and once you're into the vehicle, everything is covered in the cost of the safari. And you must remember that all your drivers there are not just drivers. They are fluent in English, then they know their geography, they know their botany, they know their bird life, and they know their animal life. They have manuals, they have the books, reference books, they have binoculars. And another interesting piece that gives you some comfort is almost all the vehicles that take you out on safari are on two-way radio. As a consequence, they are always in touch with each other and they are in touch with the base. So you never feel isolated if you are in the middle, what appears to be in the middle of nowhere. So remember, your drivers on safari are your guide, philosopher, and friend. They're extremely knowledgeable, fluent in English, and it's a good idea to befriend them, be nice to them. They will be very nice to you, and they'll show you things based on the interests you show to them. Now, having said this, I wanted to address a few miscellaneous information points, and in the bargain, address some of the concerns that you might have. So first question that comes to you is, when is a good time to visit? To me, any time is a good time, because the reasons why you go there, the weather, we'll come to the weather subsequently. Weather being what it is, you can choose any time that is available to you to get there.
Are you there, Anand? I can't hear you.
Costs of safari obviously vary depending on the time of the year that you choose. Costs are premium when it's tied into migration or it's tied into Christmas, because East Africa gets a lot of tourist traffic from Europe. I think Europe and Asia provides the single largest chunks of tourism into Africa. The Japanese are there in large numbers. All of Europe is there. Americans are beginning to come there. They've been, but in comparative numbers, they are smaller in numbers. But so July, September suits the Europeans too, because it is the European summer vacation. And Christmas is Christmas. It's time to go, leave the cold parts of your country at home and go into warmer chimes. When you travel into Africa, you go into the southern hemisphere. Christmas is summertime. July, August, September is winter. So be aware that the weather patterns change completely. Another point I wanted to make to you is that your average drive times. Typically, when you drive from your starting point, let us say in the capital in Nairobi, your average drive times from one location to the next is on an average 4 hours. So what you realize that while you do a lot of stuff driving, you don't drive with long drives every day. You drive for 4 hours, you leave after breakfast, you reach there by lunch. You take a siesta and then get on with things. In the game parks, no drive exceeds 3 hours. Now, there are multiple reasons for it, and I will come to you the reasons when I walk you through a typical day in the life of a safari. But one of the things it does is make sure that you are never challenged for your bio breaks. And one of the distinguishing features in East Africa, certainly, is the conveniences that you find either on the highways at places where the vehicles stop, or in the lodges or in the game parks are clean and extremely well maintained. You do not experience things that sometimes you do in certain parts of India, where you're dealing with challenges when it comes to the conveniences. On safety and health, I think all of us, when we travel anywhere in the world, we do travel with good travel insurance. I think that policy has to be used even when you travel into East Africa. And more often than not, a good travel insurance policy gives you connections into the flying doctor service. There is a very active flying doctor service prevalent in East Africa, which enables you, is should the need be critical, should the need arise, to be able to pick up from wherever you are and flown back for medical help if needed, back to Nairobi or to a larger city, depending on which country you are in. So there is the flying doctor service. Medical facilities in the cities are the extremely well-equipped hospitals. I just need to warn you that hospitals compared to what we are used to in India are a little pricey. But for folks coming from other parts of the world, it's par, if not cheaper. So you are taken care for safety and health. Now, the other factor that people who haven't been to Africa worry about is what you read in the media. Media tells you Africa is unsafe, you get mugged, you get held up. Well, a part of the story is true, but part of the story is also the media focuses a lot on the negatives of Africa. They don't talk about the good things. What I have experienced in 10 years that I lived there, I never had a single incident of mugging, in not a single experience that we had personally. In fact, we lived in a home where we didn't even bother to have an askari. An askari is a Swahili word for a guard. What we did have at one stage was a Masai tribesman with bows and arrows. And magically, nobody bothered us. We were perfectly safe. So you have to be conscious of the fact that security, you have to deal with personal security slightly differently than the way you do in India. But it is not something that into that part of the world. It is perfectly safe. We've done so many years of travel there without an incident. And finally, weather. I've called this plus 3,000 feet weather. What I'm really trying to communicate in this plus 3,000 feet weather is the weather is temperate by and large. One must also remember that when you are in places like East Africa, this happens even in California, the 30-degree temperature that you experience in California or in Nairobi seems hotter than the 40 degrees that we experience in India. That is the reality because of also the quality of the air. But typical temperature ranges are between 5 degrees and 30 degrees around the year. What this means is that when you plan travel there, you need to plan for light woolens. You certainly need wind cheaters, you need gloves, and you need caps. Because when you do an early morning game safari, it is cold. When you are in and around the equator at Mount Kenya or around Mount Kilimanjaro, it is very cold. So when you pack your bags on your next travel into that part of the world, be sure to keep light woolens, wind cheaters, and so on. Don't assume that I'm going to Africa, life is going to be hot, and I don't need to worry about any of these things. So in trying to, so I've tried to give you a flavor before I get into a sample safari, which is not a sample to me because it is something that we actually did. I decided to do a scorecard to try and communicate to you what I believe is a fair representation of the quality of the holiday that you get. So what I did is I tried to pick on what I think are the 6 important elements that any one of us would consider when we're choosing a new destination to travel. And when you think about a new destination to travel, I put the following 6 criteria. Does this new destination give me an opportunity to do something or see something which is unusual? Number 2, are my creature comforts taken care of? Number 3, is my food and drink good enough to make my visit not only very nice, but memorable? Then what is the kind of hospitality I can expect? What are the logistics of travel? What do I need to worry about if I'm on a holiday there? And what is value for money? And I have specifically said value for money and cost and not cost, and I'll come to that in a later slide. So that'll explain to you why I call this value for money. Now, let me share with you what my scorecard for this entire destination is. On the done or seen something unusual, I've put it as hard to quantify. What I really meant is I was giving 1 to 3 ticks everywhere else. I personally believe that this is much more than 3 ticks, which is why I said hard to quantify. It depends on what you want to do and what you like to do. And I can guarantee you it'll exceed your expectations. Creature comforts, 3 out of 3. There is no doubt you won't get better holiday destinations for the value you're paying for this. Food and drinks, again 3 ticks. Hospitality, 3 ticks. Now, this is interesting. I must give you an anecdote here. In my frequent travel into Africa, I would stay in a hotel in Nairobi, which was owned by the South Africans. And even the South Africans, and I'm referring to the white South Africans, who always had a very high opinion of their travel infrastructure in South Africa. Even they very regretfully admitted that if you want hospitality, please come to East Africa, don't go south. You will get the finest hospitality you can imagine. And what I mean by hospitality is, how do they take care of your creature comforts? How do they address some of the problems you might encounter? How do they take care of any special need you might have? What is their warmth? Are they friendly? Are they welcoming? You score almost 100 out of 100 out here. When you get to logistics, I put 2. And when I was doing the slides, people asked me, why 2, why not 3? I said, because I felt a little sheepish putting 3 ticks everywhere. I believe the logistics are outstanding, and I'll tell you why in the following 2 or 3 slides. Value for money is 3 ticks all the way. And when we get to the value, you will understand why I say that. Now, what I did was, and this was Subbarao's recommendation to me, he said, look, why don't you share a typical safari that you did? So I said, okay, we'll do that, because that gives me an opportunity for you to understand how these travels happen, how does it work, and what is the kind of itinerary you follow. So we did a live safari in 7 stages with a group of 12 friends from Pune, all living in Rakshak Society. Those of you know Rakshak will know. Some of them are attending this presentation just now. So stage 1, we traveled from Nairobi to the Aberdeen National Forest. Now this journey takes about 4 hours. So we left after breakfast, reached there in time for lunch, and then I will explain to you what we did there. Then second stage was we went from Aberdeen into the equator area, which is a town called Nanyuki. But we did this. Now, this was a drive time of not more than 2 hours, very close by. But we spent more time in transit because we were stopping at the equator, exploring what the equator has to offer. And so that was stage 2. Stage 3 was we went further north. And this is northernmost that tourist companies recommend at this stage because of the problems around with Somalia. So we went up to the Samburu National Park. From Samburu National Park, we turned around and came down to Mount Kenya to spend time at Mount Kenya. Now this was from Nanyuki to Samburu was about 4 hours, and Samburu to Mount Kenya was about 4.5 hours. We took a break at Mount Kenya, and then from Mount Kenya, we traveled into the Rift Valley, went down to Lake Nakuru. This was about a 5-hour travel. And we spent a night in Nakuru, and then did this travel down south up to the Masai Mara. This journey is normally 4 to 6 hours, and the variation depends on the lodge you're going to. There are some lodges which are on the periphery of the game park. There are some lodges which are deep inside. Ours took 6 hours because we went deep inside, closer to the Tanzanian border. And what you find on this side, if my pointer is visible to all of you, what you see on this side of the border is the Serengeti National Park and the Gorongoro crater area. So it's all around there. So the last sector was from Masai Mara back to Nairobi. So what typically happens is that when you travel, you use Nairobi as your entry and exit points. And here you get places like the giraffe manor to get introduced to what you can expect, not only the hospitality, but also the animals. And you actually get an opportunity to get really close to giraffes, where you feed them off your palm of your hand, even from the teeth, if you wanted to. The national park outside Nairobi, that's another thing you do there. And then we spent 2 hours in the 2 nights at the Aberdeen. We spent the first night in a place called the Treetops. Now, why is Treetops so famous? Treetops is famous for the very simple reason, is that this is where the current Queen, Queen Elizabeth of England, in the 50s, if all of you have been watching The Crown, you will know that Queen Elizabeth came to Treetops as a princess and left Treetops as the queen, because that's where she got the news of her father's passing away. Now, what is different about Treetops is that this is one of the game parks locations where you do not drive to see game. The game comes to the watering hole. And if you drive up to Treetops in the afternoon, you see nothing. By the time you are having your first drink in the evening, there could be up to 1,000 elephants out there. They all come there to the watering hole. Buffaloes come at the watering hole. And they come at a viewing distance of 5 to 10 feet from where you can be. It's an amazing sight. From here, we went to Sweetwater's Tented Camp, which is a private conservatory. And we stayed at the Sweetwater's Tented Camp. This was the kind of tent in which we stayed there. 1 night each, as I said. From here, we went up to Subbarao, where we spent 2 nights. Now, what I have put here is the tent. We went and stayed at a place called the Larson's Camp, where there were just a dozen tents like this. And we stayed in tents of this kind. Picture is similar to what you see here. And you see a lot of game. And the game here is different. So this starts bringing you into the realm of different species. So if you observe the zebras on the left and the zebras on the right, it appears like the zebras on the right are in high definition and zebras on the left are in the good old television that we would view. You see the sharpness of the stripes. So this is what we did at Subbarao. From
Anand,
there we came to the mountain. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. You wanted me to give you a time alert for questions. It's almost 8 o'clock, so just giving you a time alert.
Okay. I will go on fast forward. So we had a stop at the Mount Kenya Safari Club. Then we moved on to Lake Nakuru, the Rift Valley, where you have again a different experience, completely different, different animals and birds. And then the Masai Mara. We stayed at a place called the Mara Serena Lodge. This is how the lodge is. This overlooks the river. So if you've seen the National Geographic films, you see the same river from this lodge and wildlife. Here is a typical sample safari. The day begins typically at a typical day on safari. You begin the day at 5:30 in the morning and you drive for an early morning game drive and a late evening game drive. The early morning and evening game drives are because that's when the animals come to drink water and you get a better chance of seeing them. Pre-lunch, you have an option again to go out if you wish, or just relax, have a siesta, swim in the swimming pool, or pure me time, or if you want to do some work, do work. And in the evening, 7 o'clock onwards, it's drinks, dinner, there is entertainment. You get local cultural events happening there, like in many good lodges in India as well. And some vital statistics. This entire tour that we showed you was a duration of 10 nights and 11 days. What did the cost include? It included everything. It included boarding, lodging, transport, park fees, the guides. The only extras were alcohol, tips, and laundry. And the cost depended on group size, the choice of lodges, and some variables, type of vehicle you want, and so on. And I wanted to give you a sense of what we spent. We spent about $2,000 for the entire trip per person, which is $150,000 in current exchange rates. Now, why I say this is in red is because you could also do this $2,000 at $8,000 because you change the type of lodges. Everything that I showed you comes at the $2,000 price point. And what is the quality of the accommodation? It is 4 to 5-star equivalent. I believe this couldn't be a more productive value for money experience. So the last slide that I have is, I promise you memories. I want to just share a set of pictures for you, which bring you memories from our trips, which we still talk about from time to time. This is my Garden of Eden. Again, this is the ground level, watching what's going on around you. One of the nicest experiences you can have there is having an evening glass of wine on the banks of a lake, watching the sunset and having the animals frolic an evening a sunset drink. This is at the Mount Kenya Safari Club, where 2 cheetahs, these cheetahs were orphaned when they were young, and they are in the animal orphanage. And this is a friend's daughter who is with them as they are having their feed. They are grown up, they are fully grown up cheetahs. So this will always remain etched. Now, would this not be etched in your mind too? Because this is what you see at the Masai Mara. A lioness with 3 cubs. There are many more actually in the area. A dinner in the bush. Imagine having dinner in the bush in this kind of a setting. What you see in the light of the bonfire. The bonfire is for a purpose. Number 1, it gives you light. Number 2, it keeps the animals away. And it also lights up their eyes, which is spectacular to see. That's my wife having a morning breakfast served on the banks of the lake Naivasha, served in style. I mean, the kitchen is not visible to you, but that is also in style. And finally, the group that went with us, this is the Mount Kenya Safari Club, truly memorable for us anyway. So having said that, I will close my presentation. And I will try and take questions if you have any. And hopefully I'll have answers for that. Thank you, everybody.
Wow, I think we should give a moment to everybody to catch their breath. What a fascinating
Amazing.
collection of pictures. I see Professor Ramohan Rao garu. Sorry, I didn't notice you earlier, Andy. Good evening. I hope you enjoyed the talk. So there are some questions, Anand, but something that came up here is, what is the currency in this, but I don't know, I mean, in those countries, I should say, is it, I'm guessing it's not the same in all the countries you mentioned.
I'll answer that question. The currency in Kenya, Tanzania, and each country has its own currency. But the good news is all these countries, you are able to trade in dollars as well. But the currency, just to answer your question, everybody has, the Kenyans have the shilling, so do the Tanzanians, and so do the Ugandans. They have shillings, and there's a different exchange rate depending on the country you are in. And by and large, what happens, the good news is that when you take a vacation of the a la carte kind, what you pay one time, you actually don't have to pay almost anything after that. What you pay thereafter, you can pay by credit card, or you convert a certain amount of foreign exchange into the local currency so that you do not waste your exchange rates in changing money from here to there. But they're shillings. In Rwanda, it is a franc, all local currency. It's not the French franc.
Thanks. Seshu Babu has been speaking to you in Swahili, in the chat box. I don't understand all of that, but one thing he was hinting at is, to speak a bit to the group about the tales told by the Masai, the cultural tidbits. I don't know if you have one or two anecdotes about that.
See, I'll tell you what, Seshu, I know where you're coming from because you've been to all these locations more than once. I don't have anecdotes at this stage on the Masai in particular, but one of the reasons why I did not even go down that path was as it is, I ran over time. I was struggling to figure out how to include as much information without, missing out on the critical stuff. So anecdotes are plenty. I mean, it's just amazing what you experience when you're there. I mean, we have an anecdote when we were in Samburu, where this entire group whose photograph you saw, they went to a Samburu village. And there was this process of participating with the group in some amount of cultural activity, dancing with them. And then the senior, even in India, we have this concept of a village elder. So the village elder came out there. He actually picked up who he thought was the senior most member from our group, and proceeded to do the same business of anointing the senior most member with blessings and with a gift. I have a lot of pictures, but I have not put them here because there were 700 pictures to choose from. It was very tough. Sheshu, I hope I have managed to duck your question effectively.
He says Nina Kupenda Sana. What does that mean? I don't know. He says I would tell this to Africa. But anyway, that's I think. Of course, there are a lot of comments about the wonderful pictures and making it very personal, by sharing your own journey. And Nitin, of course, says you introduced him and his family to Africa in 1993.
Yes.
And then, he was very happy about that. And
actually, Nitin has a very good anecdote to tell about his first safari, where the wheels that he was traveling in reached faster than he did. I don't know whether he is there and he's willing to talk about that little event, but he would probably be able to tell you a lot. It was so funny when it happened.
Nitin, would you like to come in?
If you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Yes. So Anand had arranged a tour safari for us. So we left from Nairobi. We were on our way to Masai Mara, and there were three, myself, my wife, and my 2-year-old son at the time. And as we are driving in the middle of nowhere, we looked to the left side, and one of the wheels of our combi was going faster than the combi ahead of us. And I said, wait a minute, this does not look good. And sure enough, the combi came to a rest on its side, and basically one of the wheels had come off. But what was interesting is, in the middle of nowhere, in 10 minutes, tribesmen or locals appeared out of nowhere just to see what was going on, and our driver was completely unfazed. He didn't think anything of the wheel coming off. He thought it was perfectly natural. He got out his spanner and his wrench and started fixing it. And that was our introduction to start of the safari. And I'll never forget that incident.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Nitin. If there are no more questions, I think it was so fascinating. We were all engrossed, and now probably all of us are enchanted with Africa. So, Ms. Kamakshi, would you like to say something? Please unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself.
So can I have the...
Ms. Kamakshi, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
So thank you so much. You made me relive my experience in 2019, December. I went to Botswana. We spent the new year in Victoria Falls, and the game life, everything you described, the dramatic way they served the dinner was all so excellently presented, beautiful. Thank you so much. And you made me now tempted to go to Serengeti, that is East Africa. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. I'm so happy to hear your comments, because I'll tell you, I can see the gleam in your eyes on the screen. That's really the gleam that comes to almost all travelers I have seen and I have known. They just come back totally enchanted.
Rajaram Garu, did you want to say something?
Yeah, one is I wanted the telephone number of Mr.
That you can
Halbe.
do privately. I'll send it to you privately.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
The other thing is, I love my travels in, I went to South Africa. My wife and I were at the Kruger National Park.
Yes.
Probably you've been there too?
Yes. Yes.
And beautiful. We had a lion 5 feet away from us, wondering whether we are good enough for breakfast. So, And it was so beautiful. We saw the big five, as it said, were, we had a lovely, lovely time at the Kruger Park. The important thing is, we needed to take the, injections and
Yellow fever.
tablets, which are very important for malarial tablets before, during, and after, especially in South Africa. That's important. And also the yellow fever vaccination, which is required.
The yellow fever vaccination is like the US visa. You take it once in 10 years.
That's right.
So
Yeah,
that's the good news.
we've got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
did
that's
it
the good
about
news.
20 years ago when I went to DRC, when I was doing a project there where I went to Nairobi. But it's beautiful. Africa is lovely. And as I said, we missed last year going to Tanzania, and this year too, definitely next year, to the Masai
Maybe
Mara.
we should do it together. Maybe we should do it together.
Probably good. The wildebeest migration. My wife loves to watch all that on Animal Planet. And and it's beautiful. It's just that time in August.
Thank you. Rajaram, I shared Anand's number with you, and Anand, I shared Rajaram's number. So here's a task for both of you and the rest of you in Pune. We are very keen to start a chapter of FOSWL in Pune. There are at least 5 people from Pune on this call. So you guys should kick it off in a conference call, and we'll talk more about it offline.
Sounds good. Sounds very good.
So, okay, if there are no more questions, we have exceeded our time. We normally close at 8, but this topic was so fascinating that we were all enthralled. And may I now call upon our secretary, Mr. Subhash Chandra Bose, to present a formal vote of thanks on behalf of the president and all of us at FOSWL Hyderabad.
Good evening, everyone. President of FOSWL Hyderabad, Sri Venkateswara Garu, distinguished speaker, Sri Anand Halwe, family and friends of Professor R.B. Rao, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining this 152nd monthly meeting on Zoom. We thank the family members of Professor R.B. Rao for establishing an annual endowment lecture in his name in the month of August. We also thank T. Satyanarayana for the annual logistics sponsorship for the month of August every year in the name of Srimati P. Vasundhara. While the number of Indians traveling abroad has increased manifold over the years, Africa is seldom found on the list of desired destinations. It was therefore a particular delight to hear Mr. Anand Halwe. What made it even more engrossing is that he shared his personal travel anecdotes with stunning and mesmerizing pictures. Thank you, Mr. Anand, for taking us on an enchanting journey to the beautiful, amazing Africa. And we appreciate your taking our questions. Thank you, Ms. Yashoda Totapura, for joining us from Basel and Basel, Switzerland, and rendering the prayer. We thank Mr. Naresh Rahman for sharing some snippets of the illustrious and inspiring life of Professor R.B. Rao Garu. Thank you, Professor Susheel Bhavnani, for joining us from Auburn, Alabama in the USA, and for introducing our distinguished speaker, which was very apt as we both went to the same school here in Hyderabad. We are very happy that the family members of Professor R.B. Rao will be a part of today's meeting. Thank you for joining us this evening. We propose to continue with the Zoom meetings for now till we get over the anticipated third wave. If you have not already done so, please get vaccinated as early as you can and continue to follow all precautions even after the vaccination, especially in the months of August and September. Our forthcoming meetings are as follows. Saturday, 18th September 2021 at 6:15 p.m. Indian Standard Time, Professor Ram Mohan Rao Mendu, Dean Emeritus of ISB, former Director IIM Bangalore, will speak on Management Institutes, International Recognition and Societal Impact, Case Study of ISB and IIM Bangalore. Saturday, 16th October 2021 at 6:15 p.m. Indian Standard Time, Ms. Arti Halbe, alumnus of the London School of Economics, passionate researcher on the culture of nomads in India, will speak on pastoralism. On this Saturday, 20th November 2021 at 6:15 p.m. Indian Standard Time, Professor Murali